Okay, so this is week 3. The session is just flying right on by of MGT 6525 Value Delivery course. This week's topic is producing high-value increments for frequent stakeholder review and the course project. So they're real closely tangled together. And so the main thing is the course project. And so I put together a little PowerPoint presentation to kind of cover those two items. This week is we're at the kind of coming out of we're in the Envision stage of the model that we're using, the ESEAC Agile Project Management model. And so we're entering this Envision phase where the project idea becomes a clear foundation for what we're going to do. And so before we focus on the assignment, it's kind of helpful to figure out where we are in the larger Agile Project Management lifecycle. And so we're using the ESEAC model, and basically it's a flexible and disciplined way to move from vision to delivery. It's one of the Agile models out there. And one of the reasons that I like to use it for this class is it kind of supports both small projects, and you can also scale this up too if you need to. But this is where we refine the vision that we created, the vision statement, and clarify the project community and define this broad scope and determine how we're going to work together. And all these activities prepare us for the later phases, especially a speculate phase, where we begin developing our feature-based plan and explore where the team begins delivering increments for stakeholder review. So the purpose of the Envision phase is that the Envision phase refines the project vision by clarifying what will be delivered, who's involved, and how the team will work. It helps us move from the general idea of the project to a clearer, more agile project direction. And here we refine the product vision, we identify the people who will shape and evaluate the work, and we determine how the team will collaborate. It doesn't mean that we're creating a rigid plan or any detailed specifications at this point. We're creating enough shared understanding so that we can support later, the speculate and discovery phases and this other planning and delivery and stakeholder review that we have to do. And it answers 3 basic questions. The Envision phase gives the Agile team shared answers to 3 project defining questions, the what, who, and how. It's organized around these questions. And the first is that it's the first, what are we delivering and why does it matter? And second, who needs to be involved, consulted, or informed? And third, how will the team work together to deliver value? These are important at this phase because we need flexibility, but we also need a shared direction. And without early alignment, these questions help align us as a team. We can move quickly, but still move in different directions if we don't have this alignment. The Envision creates a foundation for valuable increments. A strong Envision phase helps the Agile team produce high-value increments that stakeholders can review frequently. So each increment, we're delivering product, and stakeholders can review and give us feedback. And this is important because it prepares the team to deliver increments that stakeholders can actually evaluate. And if the team's not clarified the product vision, the scope, or the community, or the delivery approach, then later increments may be technically complete, but not necessarily valuable. So we may fail to produce something that's of value for the stakeholders. And so envisioning helps the team understand what value means, who will judge that value, and how the team will work together to deliver it. And so this supports the model's emphasis on iterative delivery, customer feedback, and learning and adaptation. So the product vision box, from the product vision box to the product, basically. The product vision box translates the product vision into a clearer, stakeholder-oriented, stakeholder-centered explanation of value. There's also a newer, more trendy form of this idea, and it's called a product vision canvas. And basically the difference between the two is the canvas is something you can like load up in a Word or a PowerPoint and edit it and then print it out really nice, where the box is actually a box you hold on to. My experience has been is that with the canvas, you have this nice meeting. It gives you a good way for people to brainstorm and put things together. But once it's done and stuck on the wall, you kind of forget about it. With the product vision box, you actually create a box that sits out on the desk or it's in the middle of the room, and people can pick it up and look at it and hold it. It's much more tangible. And so I found that even though it's kind of old school these days, it tends to work a little better for early on planning. But it's the first kind of artifact that we deliver this week, and it helps us move beyond a general idea, a product idea, and explain the product from the perspective of customers, users, and stakeholders. The activity that we're going to do this week asks us to think about why the product matters, what features or requirements are important, what the product aims to achieve, how it improves the user's work life, and when it may be delivered, and where it may or will be used. So the idea is to connect directly to the product through the Envision phase here, because this is where we're clarifying the vision. So this is helping us to clarify the vision, the context, and the project community, and also some of the project management practices that we're going to use. So the front of the vision box should clearly sell the product's value to our target customer or our end user and our key stakeholder. And it should clearly sell the product's value. And so the front of it is the most customer-facing part of the activity. So, you don't really want to simply describe the product from the team's perspective. They should try to explain it from the product, how it matters to the target customer or the user. This includes like the problem that it's being addressed, the benefit that the product provides, and the way users prefer this product over other possible solutions. And this connects to the Envision phase because the team is here. We're continuing to find the product vision and clarifying the product or what the project is trying to deliver, what the delivery expectations are. The back of the box, it explains like major features and requirements that support the product's value. So the back of the product vision box moves from the why sort of to the what. And here we describe the major features of the system and its requirements. And we make those are the things that make the product useful, those requirements, the features and requirements. It doesn't need to be, we're not looking for complete specification here. Instead, the goal is just to identify the most important capabilities and explain how they'll support the product's value. The features here listed on here should connect back to the customer and the value that we presented on the front of the box. Excuse me a second. Throat's a little hard, dry. The side panels, the product box side panels, they clarify the purpose, the user benefit, timing, and the usage context. So we complete the box. So we've got the top and the bottom in both sides. So we have 4 side panels. And we need to think beyond just the features alone. We can have interesting features, but still lack a clear purpose, a clear user benefit or delivery path or usage context. So the 4 panels help us explain what the product is trying to accomplish. How it helps the user, when it might be delivered, and where will it be used, or how it might be used. And so this supports the Envision phase again, because we're still continuing our refinement process here, our vision refinement process. So revising the product vision statement. So we've got the product vision box, and so the revised project vision statement should reflect what we learned from completing the vision box. So the idea is that as we go through this exercise, and especially if you do it with a team, you're going to come up with lots of new things that you've learned. Maybe things that, when the initial vision statement was written weren't considered, or things that maybe were considered that are not feasible or should be out of scope, something like that. So the revised product vision statement should not simply repeat the vision statement. The product vision box actually should help us see what needs to be clarified, strengthened, or made more specific. So after thinking through the customer value and the features and the purpose and the benefits and timing and context, we should be able to revise the product vision so it better communicates what the product is, who it serves, why it matters, and how it supports the business stakeholder or stakeholder value. And so this again aligns with the Envision phase because the purpose is to create a stronger shared understanding of the product vision and the project context before we move into more detailed planning activities. There's some kind of project data sheet, and you can go out on the internet and search for that. Use just a Google search, and there's one that I've seen a lot of students use. And after we get done here, I'll try to go look that up. But it's the closest thing to a project charter that we might have. And for this, and it's a one-page kind of high-level summary that summarizes the project business objectives, the capabilities, quality expectations, and management information, all in one concise artifact. It's intended to be a concise, it's not intended to be, put this way, it's intended to be a concise project summary, not an overall detailed document. You should think of it as a one-page artifact that helps sponsors, stakeholders, and team members quickly understand the project. It's not a long essay. Instead, it should summarize the most important business objectives, quality objectives, product capabilities, and project management information. And again, this is a part of the Envision phase because we're still clarifying the direction, context, and success factors before we move on to the next speculate phase. And then the delivery approach document. This is a document that explains how the Agile team will organize, collaborate, and deliver value. And it's an important artifact because it explains how the team intends to work. And so a strong product vision tells the team what value it wants to create, but the delivery approach explains how the team will collaborate, organize responsibilities, and use an Agile framework, tailor practices, and communicate progress. So what we're doing here is we're saying, okay, we're going to be a Scrum. We're going to use the Scrum methodology, or we're going to use Kanban. If we saw from the project vision statement in the product box that this is highly volatile requirements, we may want to do something that gives us the ability to prioritize every day, like Kanban. Scrum, we can do every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever increment works. Or we could maybe take some tailoring and bring in some of the parts of other methods, like the DSDM and the Crystal Clear and all those other frameworks. But we could bring in and tailor it. We could take Scrum and add in some of the extreme programming stuff to it and create a sort of a hybrid, which is very common, by the way. Most Scrum teams that I've worked with leverage a lot of what you see, like things like test-driven development, how they handle backlog refinement, the interaction with the product owner, all that kind of stuff can kind of come from the extreme programming. So this document's where we describe that. Then we have the project community and team, and this Agile delivery depends on a clearly defined project community, not just the core team. So the delivery approach document should identify more than just the team, people doing the work. It depends on a broader project community that includes customers, users, sponsors, stakeholders, product leadership, and the performing organization. So we should explain in this part of the document who participates in the project, what role they play, and how they contribute to feedback, decisions, approvals, or delivery. And all this matters because frequent stakeholder review really only works when we have the right people are identified. And so if you go back to the traditional sort of methods, this would be essentially our stakeholder register. Identify all the stakeholders in the stakeholder register and identify what roles they play in this. And we would use these to guide our communications with all the stakeholders. The self-organization strategy requires clear accountability, collaboration norms, and communication expectations. So self-organization doesn't mean that the team works without structure or accountability. So if you're going to do Scrum, you're going to be able to answer some of these questions in here. If you're going to do a tailored sort of hybrid, you would want to document how the accountability works. It means that the team has enough clarity, trust, and authority to manage its work responsibly. So what you might come out of this, if you have a team already working on it, you might come out of this with like working agreements. But at this phase, you would probably more want to come out of it with, what our iterations are going to be. We're going to use the communications structure like in Scrum with the planning and daily stand-ups and those sort of things. And so this we're trying to define their practices here. So you're going to, whatever you selected for the delivery approach is going to carry over into this in a little bit more detail. And in the framework selection, again, Scrum, same thing. And if you're going to pick one, pick it. If you're going to tailor it, you want to document that. So here's this where it talks about practice tailoring. So, some agile teams don't simply copy practices from a framework without thought. So we should select and tailor based on the project's need. That's kind of where PMI is going anyway. In the industry itself, it's going to more, everything's context-based, especially with AI tools helping. You should explain which practices are required, what modifications may be needed, and how formal the team's documentation, approvals, and change process would be. So all of these things I'm talking about don't have to be separate sections. They can be, but they need to all be addressed in that document. And then from Envision artifacts to stakeholder review. So the artifacts prepare the team to deliver increments that stakeholders can review. So all these things we've done is set us up for how we're going to work. And it's not just a separate paperwork exercise. They work together to prepare the project for agile delivery. The vision box helps clarify value. The revised vision statement improves the project's direction. The project data sheet summarizes the most important project information. The delivery approach document explains how the team will organize and work. And together, all these artifacts make it easier to move into our feature-based planning and later produce increments that stakeholders can review, improve through feedback. And again, this supports models in the ESEAC models, emphasis on delivery, learning, and adaptation. So if you were doing this in real life and you had a team working with you as an agile project manager, you would be leading the team through all these steps. You wouldn't be doing all this yourself. It'd be some of the key stakeholders. You would all be coming up with these decisions early on and then put together your product roadmap and then start iterating through the sprints, iteration, whatever you call them, intervals, and incrementally deliver the product. Week 3 deliverables, they all work together to refine the product vision and prepare the team for delivery. And so here we're developing all these different artifacts, and they should not be treated as disconnected things. They all help clarify the product from multiple stakeholders' perspectives. And so the revised vision statement should reflect what was learned from all of this activity that we just did. And the project data sheet provides that summary. And so each document explains how we're going to work together. And so the essay part of the assignment should explain what you learned as a student and what your takeaways were from completing all these exercises. And the week 3 submissions, the strong submissions, show integration, specificity, and clear agile thinking. So the most common mistake is treating all these things as a set of disconnected things. They're all integrated. The project vision box and the revised project vision statement, the data sheet, the delivery approach document should all support one another. And they should be specific about your selected project, explain how features connect to customer value, and identify the community, and justify the framework and practices you want to use, and how the team will collaborate, remain accountable. This aligns, again, with the vision state phase because it's intended to create a shared understanding of the project vision, the project context, the project community, and the practices. So they should all work together as the foundation of what's coming next. And this is the part of the framework that we're working with. Excuse me. This is the part of the framework that we're working with that's more like sort of the traditional model as far as getting the project initiated. I would call this initiating, really, if you were looking at an older model, the predictive model. Once we move into speculate, it's all very different from that. But this is setting us up so that we can do that. So the reflective essay, again, should explain what we learned by completing these artifacts. It shouldn't just summarize the assignment. It should explain what you learned from completing these activities. So you might discuss how the product vision box helped clarify customer value, or how the vision statement became more specific, or how the project community that you were thinking about had changed, and also explain how the delivery approach help you think about collaboration and self-organization. Again, it's reflective on this. You might even think of it as kind of a mini retrospective and treat it like that. What went well, what didn't go well, what do you suggest to do differently? So what did I learn? What should, what gaps are there any? And how can I fill those gaps? Something like then some managerial takeaways. The Envision phase helps the Agile project managers align the vision and stakeholders and team practices. So the main takeaway from this week is that the Envision phase gives Agile project managers a practical way to create alignment with the organization, strategic alignment with the team before we get any detailed work on the project. The goal is not to create a rigid plan or excessive documentation. The goal is to clarify the vision, identify the community, and define how the team will work and prepare for a meaningful stakeholder review. And so when everything's clear, the team will be better prepared to move into the feature-based planning and delivery, incremental delivery, and stakeholder feedback, and be able to adapt as the project unfolds. And so again, with the emphasis on the model, the ESEAC model is flexibility, customer collaboration, iterative delivery, and continuous adaptation. So we can look ahead from Envision to Speculate. So after Envision, we'll move into Speculate, start next week. That's where we start turning the vision into a flexible feature-based plan. And so the work we're doing this week prepares the project for the next phase of the model. And in Envision, we clarify the product vision, the project community scope, and delivery. In Speculate, we begin translating that understanding into our feature-based plan or roadmap. And this is different from traditional planning because the plan is expected to evolve as the team learns more. And the goal is not to predict anything really or everything perfectly. The goal is to create enough direction to begin prioritizing features, planning iterations, managing risk, and preparing for incremental delivery and stakeholder review. So before we move from Envision to Speculate, we should be able to explain the project's value, community scope, and delivery approach. So we need to evaluate whether the project is ready to move forward. And the Envision phase the team should have a clear understanding of these elements. And, if they're vague, the team may struggle with this in the Speculate phase because the planning depends on clear understanding of value and the priorities, that alignment that I was talking about. And so this is why week 3 artifacts, the Envision artifacts, matter because they help determine whether the project is ready for the next step in the Agile project management lifecycle. So if we can't explain the vision clearly, then we're really not ready to start planning and developing our features, our user stories and all of that as we go through. And so Agile teams, this is, as we close out here, the Agile teams deliver better increments when they first clarify the vision, value, shareholders, and delivery approach. So we can remember that the Envision phase is not just a checkpoint. It's a point where the project begins to take shape and the team clarifies what value the product should deliver, who needs to be involved, what information is needed, and how the team will collaborate. And when these elements are clear, the project is better prepared to move into Speculate, where we can begin developing our Agile feature-based approach to deliver value. And the goal is not to eliminate, and we're not trying to eliminate uncertainty here. We want to deal with uncertainty. The goal is to create enough understanding to deliver, review, and learn and adapt effectively as we go through. So you can see the theme here is learning, adaptability, clear understanding of scope, and priority and alignment with the stakeholders, shareholders, organization, whoever the strategic alignment ownership is. And so that's the end of my little presentation. I'll put a copy of the slides out on the forum where I post the video. So if you want to go back and review any of this, you can.